It's that time. Oh my goodness. Hi, I'm Tom Sinclair. It's time for that VidBlaster guy coming to you live from wherever it is we're coming to you from. Where are we today? We're in Fairhope, Alabama on the eastern shore of Mobile Bay. So if you go to Mobile and then you see the little body of water just to the east of that, we're just to the east of that. And that is what's called the Eastern Shore, not to be confused with the Eastern Shore of Maryland, USA. But the Eastern Shore Broadcasting is our new, let me try to get underneath that, is our new kind of umbrella organization that we're going to be falling under. And that's going to allow us to do all sorts of cool things with VidBlaster and other software, as well as have a local appeal to professionals in our community. And we'll talk some more about that on a future show. Anyway, easternshorebroadcasting.com. Hey, the idea behind this show is that one guy with one PC and the right software, of course, can really do an awesome broadcast. And I've been doing this show, this month marks the 24th month of that VidBlaster guy. So next month, come July, we will be celebrating the beginning of our third year. Can you imagine? It's gone by so quickly. And if you go back, don't do it. But if you were to go back and look at some of the original shows, some of the alpha shows, you remember we did the alpha shows in the beginning in June 2012? They were horrible. They were awful. But it wasn't the fault of the software or the PC. It was the guy. So anyway, it's been a lot of fun the last 2 years, and we're going to do it. We're going to continue to go. As you can tell, we've changed the format of the show just a little bit. We've dropped it back to a half hour, and we do a second segment the same day. This is being broadcast live on Wednesdays, and we do a second segment the same day, but it's got a different name, and it's called Streaming Idiots, and that's intended to be a little bit more generic, not necessarily VidBlaster-centric, so that we can branch out and talk about other kinds of things, and we keep that VidBlaster guy to talk just about VidBlaster. And boy, can we talk about VidBlaster today. Wow. Now, you know me, I like to be the one with the latest news on VidBlaster, and in this case, let's call it pre-news, because we're going to do a pre-release review today. VidBlaster, it's almost been exactly 3 months. Tomorrow, June 18th, it will have been 3 months since the last VidBlaster beta was released. So could tomorrow be the day? Tomorrow could be the day when VidBlaster version 3.23 will be released in beta. Now, why am I so excited about that? Well, I'm so excited about it because a lot of the things that I've wanted to see come into VidBlaster, I got distracted by some of the guys here in the chat room here. They're playing around with their with their colors, trying to get them right. So far, nobody's done any. Well, we've got Mike that's doing black on black, and so you have to double click it to see what he's looking at. Anyway, sorry about that. If you're watching us live, come on, it's a lot of fun. The guys have fun in the chat room. It's like a bunch of kids just playing around sometimes, but sometimes we get some interesting things there too. And we're live on Wednesdays, 3 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock British summertime here in the summer, and 5 a.m. in Melbourne, Australia on Thursday mornings. So, and if you miss us live, you can always pick us up on YouTube. It's That VidBlaster Guy. Yeah, that's the channel, That VidBlaster Guy. So, we got this new release impending. It has been impending for 3 or 4 weeks now. The question in the chat room is the date contest, the beta contest, still up? Yes. If you go to easternshorebroadcasting.com, you can enter the contest and guess the day that VidBlaster version 3.23 will be released. And if you do, you win $100 towards purchase of VidBlaster or upgrade or whatever you want to of your choice from me, not from VidBlaster. It's from that VidBlaster guy. It costs you $1 to enter. It costs you $1 to enter. And if we raise more than $100, we'll give away whatever we raise. But I'm guaranteeing at least $100. It's gonna be a lot of fun. So version 3.23, the new one coming up, soon, has got some really cool stuff in it. And some of the things have been kind of a long time coming. They were pretty major kinds of changes. And so I know the developer of VidBlaster, Mike Versteeg, wanted to carefully think through these things and make sure that he wasn't going to take himself, off on a wild goose chase or go down a dead-end path and get stuck for the future, because he really is concerned about how the program evolves and whether it has a good path. That means, he's not thinking about the next change. He's thinking about, 3 changes down the road. And so he doesn't want to have to go back and clean up code or clean up terminology or clean up how things work because he made a bad choice early on. So that can be some of the reason why some of these things have been delayed. The biggest part about this, I think, has to do with the fact that it uses a new encoder. Or let me say that. It doesn't have an encoder built into it. Wirecast has got a great encoder built into it. vMix uses Flash Media Live Encoder in a command line format, so you don't really see it happening. Same that VidBlaster has been doing since the early days. And now it's doing the same thing, but with a different encoder. The different encoder is the encoder that powers FFmpeg. Sorry, that probably should be a lowercase f up there. Anyway, FFmpeg has got the ability to choose lots of encoders, and Mike has begun to unravel how FFmpeg works. Now, FFmpeg is a command line format encoder, and it can do live encoding, it can do video encoding, it can do all sorts of things. It's very, very powerful. But one of the big powers about it, I think, is the X.264 implementation of the H.264 codec. And that is reputed to be very good compression. I want to be real careful with my words here because I get in trouble when I talk about things that I don't know about. But I see Martin K's in the chat room, so he's going to bail me out here if I get in too wrong. It allows you to use a higher compression, but still get good video quality. And the advantage of higher compression is that you have a smaller file to broadcast, which means that you can have a higher quality video image at the same or less bandwidth. The downside to it, as pointed out immediately in the chat room, is that it does use more CPU. But the advantage, from what I can tell from X.264, is that it really does a good job of balancing compression with CPU usage. And that's the big news on X.264, is that it's sort of the holy grail, or at least a shot in that direction, of being able to balance high CPU, or balance the calls to the CPU versus the higher compression, and still come out with a good video file. So we'll see. Again, it hasn't happened yet, but the tests that I've seen when Mike has been running them, every now and then he'll post that he's running a test, and you can go to his Ustream channel and watch the test. And from what I see, he's got pretty low bit rate, which I think means pretty high compression, but a really good quality file. So we'll have to see when it comes out. Now, my expectation will be that version 3.23 beta, soon to be released, probably will be followed up within a week or two by 3.24, as people like me dig into it and say, "Whoa, hold on a second, this is not exactly the way we anticipated it. Can we tweak this just a little bit?" So we'll see. That's been the case in the past, where kind of a major beta comes out, and then there are a couple of betas to follow it to fix anything that weren't quite right. So the fact that it's using FFmpeg behind the scenes, I think, is going to be a big deal. And the other thing that's built into the FFmpeg is the ability to use the AAC audio codec, without having to pay the 100 or 150 or whatever it is licensing fee. Apparently, somehow, AAC is licensed to FFmpeg organization, which is an open source consortium, and so you got access to AAC audio, which I think is going to be important for those folks that are streaming to iOS devices and are currently having to re-encode so that the audio part can be heard by the iPhone. So this is going to be a pretty big deal. I think it's going to simplify some people's workflows, and it's going to enable people to use, some other people to use VidBlaster that couldn't use VidBlaster before. So we're looking forward to that and seeing how that works out. All of this really comes through a new streamer module. Now, one of the things you may have noticed about VidBlaster in the past, that sometimes there'll be more than one module with the same name. For example, there is, if you go in VidBlaster to Modules and then go to Add, you'll see there's a Camera version 1 module. Then there's a Camera version 3 module. And they're both camera modules, and you can use them both, but they're slightly different. Well, we've added a new streamer module. And the old streamer module, we didn't know it, but it was streamer module version 1. There was a streamer module version 2 that was using some sort of different process. Bear with me on that one. And it didn't go the direction they wanted to, so they kept it numbered, but they never released it. So the new streamer module will be streamer module version 3. Yay, version 3. Just a coincidence that streamer module version 3 will be released in version 3. Don't get confused on that one. So when you get the new software and you want to try the new streamer module, go to Modules, go to Add, and look in there for streamer module 3, and it'll just say streamer 3. And streamer 3 will have all sorts of new toys to play with that will allow you to have greater, faster, prettier, better video. Your shows will immediately improve. I mean, in fact, you won't say all the time just because of the streamer module. Well, maybe not. Yeah, there we go. Streamer 3. It's going to be the Streamer 3. Built into Streamer 3 will be the ability for VidBlaster to stream to more and different CDNs with one click. Now, that's always fun. So you can go ahead and pre-configure your streamer for that particular CDN. And if you need to change to a different one, you can, and then go back to the other one. Let's see, I think I've got a list here. Yeah, Scale Engine is one that I understand is very competitively priced. So if you're paying for your CDN right now, you may want to take a look at Scale Engine. Solid Tango I'm not familiar with, but I understand that that's going to be another one that's going to be supported. Sunday Streams, for those folks that are using Sunday Streams for churches. Sometimes church folk have best intentions, but they don't always have as much skill, perhaps, because they're only doing it maybe once a week or once a month if they're volunteers. Well, now it can be pre-configured for Sunday Streams. And then, of course, Dacast, which will be adding both the Flash and the HTML5. That's cool, and I'm looking forward to trying that out. Currently, currently I think you can do Dacast through the current streamer for Flash, but you can't do it for HTML5 because that requires a separate authentication, which VidBlaster couldn't handle. Flash Media Live Encoder would handle it, but VidBlaster wasn't configured for it. So the new streamer will allow you to use Dacast for both the Flash and the HTML5 in Dacast. Let's see. Let's go to this. Oh, yes. This is going to be cool. You can select. Now, this is kind of a, well, what's the best way to put it? These are kind of idiot buttons. No offense intended. If you want to experiment with video compression, you can pick high, medium, or low compression, and that will impact your CPU on one hand, and it will impact your bandwidth on the other hand. So low compression probably is going to give you a file that's going to be larger and will require a higher bit rate to stream it. Low bit rate, more compression. So that's going to be the balancing act right there. So you'll be able to select your video compression. You'll also be able to select your bit rate. And that's going to be interesting to see how that works, because if you select low video compression and then a low bit rate, and I don't know how well that's going to work. So we'll see how those things tend to work together. But it's going to be nice to be able to set the bit rate. Now you can set the video bit rate now separately from in the future, separately from the audio bit rate. Currently in the streamer, you kind of have some pre-configured choices that have the audio and video bit rates already kind of combined as to one choice. And now you're going to be able to select those separately. So for example, if you have a talk show where you want to have excellent quality, or maybe you're doing a radio show where you've got video with it too, but you want to have really excellent quality audio, you can bump up that bit rate. But if you're just doing a soccer match and you don't care, and it's going to be a lot of background noise from the crowd anyway, and you're limited on bandwidth, you can take that 128K that you were going to be using for audio, and you can knock it down by probably 75% in order to save a few K of that uplink bandwidth. If you're operating off of a wireless connection, like a 4G connection of some kind, for example. I've even used 3G for streaming. Boy, that was you talk about being bandwidth confined. That really did the job. So this is going to be a way to be able to manage those variables a little bit more precisely. Now, with this kind of flexibility, with this kind of power, comes problems. And I expect that there'll be a lot of folks that get confused about the relationship between these. And so I'm sure I and probably some other folks will be setting up some examples that people can work with. It'll be a starting point, and then they can kind of vary from those examples depending on their type of usage. But you don't want to set up a profile that is going to be a recipe not for success. We don't want to do that. The fact that so many people have problems with their CDN dropping the connection, or their ISP dropping the connection, now VidBlaster, through this new Streamer Module 3, will be able to reconnect automatically. If it senses that the connection's been lost, it'll reconnect automatically. That's really cool. I think that's going to be great, and especially for folks that are running a 24-hour station where they're using a lot of pre-recorded content, and they may not be monitoring it, on an hour-by-hour basis, but maybe looking at it once in the morning, once in the evening, that kind of thing when they load it up. It's going to be important to have this auto reconnect. So this is a pretty big deal. I think this is a pretty big deal, and it's going to really help a lot of folks out in their particular situations. We're kind of monitoring some of the soccer in the World Cup around the world, and we just found out that Chile scored. I think Chile is playing Spain right now, and Spain is not having a good cup, as they say. So auto reconnect is going to be a big deal, and we're glad for it. I'm not sure what the official title for this is, but I call it split streaming. And this is, and I've had several folks ask me for this, excuse me, and they'd like to be able to use one program like VidBlaster and stream two different video sources to two different places at the same time from the same software. Why? I don't know. But let's say they wanted to, maybe they wanted to send a clean feed like this shot, but without without the lower third, for example. And then they want to send the feed that's got everything else in it. So they might have 2 streamer modules. Each streamer module would have a different video source. And so one would have a source that looked like this, one would have a source that looked like this, and they would send them out to 2, they can send it wherever they want to, but 2 separate locations. One could be a high-speed feed, one could be a low-speed feed. One could go to a different server for a different process. I've seen situations where people were doing sporting events, where they were doing tournaments like tennis tournaments or things like that, where there was more than one game on at a time. And so they wanted to be able to essentially use one piece of software on one PC to stream what was going on in 2 different locations and send it to 2 different links. So it could be combined on their website as having 2 different feeds going in at the same time. So now VidBlaster will do that without having to do any kind of workarounds. We were able to find some workarounds before, but we can now do this sort of split streaming part. It will also, and I'm not really clear how this is going to work yet, but it will also allow you to see what the frames per second rate is in what is actually sent. So if there's some question about whether you're getting a full frame sent, it will show you that, and that's good. That's good. I like that. It's nice to be able to see that kind of information. You never know if you're trying to diagnose something where somebody's getting what looks like bad frame rate at the end. Well, why are you getting it? At what point in the process is it happening? And being able to track that back is going to be really helpful. I'm sure I've probably omitted something that's really important for this one, but that's the highlights from what I can tell. The favorite one for me is the fact that, and it really kind of funnels out from this one, that VidBlaster is now going to be able to use FFmpeg to do its encoding. And so I think there'll be a lot of enhancements that will be really easy to do down the road, because FFmpeg is kind of behind the scenes as an encoder. Now I know in the past Mike has talked about writing an encoder, and I suspect that's probably a huge project, frankly, and I don't even know anything about it. But the fact that he's made a move towards an industry accepted standard like FFmpeg, as was Flash Media Live Encoder. But as you recall, Flash Media Live Encoder from Adobe orphaned at 3.2. Adobe said, that's it, we're not doing it anymore. You can still download it, you can still use it, it's still free, but we're not supporting it. We're not improving it. And so any modifications or updates or major changes to codecs like the H.264 or the VP6, it's not going to be available for Flash Media Live Encoder unless you know how to go in and tweak the guts of it, which I'm not going to even get into. So suffice to say that this version 3.23, when it arrives, will be a pretty big splash. This is a pretty big splash announcement. And so if you want to get in on the raffle as to when it'll be released, go to Eastern Shore Broadcasting, and there's a little link up in the top right-hand corner, and you can pay your $1, and it'll go into the pot, and I'm guaranteeing the pot will have at least $100 in it. And if you win $100 worth of VidBlaster products from me, Tom Sinclair, that VidBlaster guy. It's going to be a lot of fun. And if we get more than $100, whatever we get, we'll be giving it back. So it will be fun. Now you got to hurry and do this. Now somebody asked me the other day, all right, what if 2 people pick the same day? Well, of course, 2 people are going to pick the same day. Nobody's going to pick, March 17th. That day is probably pretty safe. You'd be the only one to pick that day. But if 2 people pick it or 3 people pick it, we'll just draw names out of a hat. And we'll do that live on the show. So that'll be a lot of fun too. So we'll see. So go ahead and get your choices, your picks in today. It's going to cost you $1, or it'll cost you $2 for 2. I'll make you a deal. If you buy 5, it'll only cost you $5. How about that? Okay. Coming up in the next segment on Streaming Idiots, we've got some great questions from folks from all over the world. A lot of them are about VidBlaster, so if you're a VidBlaster guy, you want to stay tuned for that one. This show today will be posted to YouTube tonight, Wednesday night, and then the Streaming Idiots segment that we'll do a little later on today will be posted on Friday, so that'll give you some weekend watching. What else? Oh, I know. One other thing that's been, this is kind of a little tidbit, and I'm not sure if this is going to make it into this this version or not. There's been a lot of discussion about how video files get saved in VidBlaster. And currently, VidBlaster stores the video to a temporary file. And when you tell the recorder to stop, it stops recording to that temporary file. And when you say save and give it a file name, it copies that video file from the temporary location to the permanent location and the permanent name. And so that can take, depending on the video file, for a 1-hour show here, 864 by 480, 30 frames a second, that might take a minute and a half, something like that. If you're doing high definition, it's going to take longer. If you've got a longer show than that, it's going to take longer. And so there's been some discussion about different ways to do that to see if it would make it more user-friendly. One of the suggestions was to what was the suggestion? Well, there were several suggestions, and let me put it this way: the one that resonated with me was the one where, when you are about to make a recording, VidBlaster either spontaneously names the file itself or asks you to name the file. And so when it records the file, it records it where you want it with the name you want it, so that when it's done recording, it's done. There's no lag or the need to name it at that point. And I really like that idea. Now, Wirecast does something very similar. Wirecast, has a name built into it. I think you can go in and edit the name, but it's got kind of a default name, and then it adds a 1 to it, and then a 2, and then a 3, that kind of thing. So every time you make a recording, it checks to see what the last recording was that you made, and it increments that number by 1. And then if you're smart, you'll go in and rename it something that makes sense, and put it, if that's not the place, put it somewhere else. And Mike has mentioned in the chat room that you might want the temp location on a solid state drive, and then a save location on the large drive. And that's exactly what I do. This show right now is being recorded on the solid state drive, so that there's not any lag. And then after I upload it to YouTube, I'll transfer it over to the hard drive, and like to have it in 2 places. So I figure I've got it up at YouTube and I've got it here. That means, if I lose this show, nobody's going to die. But there may be other mission critical stuff that you want to be able to have a good workflow to protect. And the software can't do it all for you. Some of it you got to figure out how you want it to work so that you can make it work yourself. Yep. So that's going to be fun. So we'll look for that file save option, and we'll see if it makes into version 3.23. I'm betting it doesn't, but I'm betting it does show up pretty quickly after that. This has been That VidBlaster Guy. I'm Tom Sinclair. Oh, I forgot to tell you too. I'm a VidBlaster authorized reseller, and so this in some ways this is kind of a commercial. But if I can help you with VidBlaster because you want to buy it, you can go to the website, that vidblasterguy.com, and buy it. If you want to upgrade, either do a version upgrade. If you bought version 1 or 2 and want to upgrade to version 3, we can help you with that. Typically, it's 50% of whatever the retail price was. If you want to do an edition upgrade, if that is you have Home, Pro, or Studio, and you want to upgrade to the one above it, you just pay the difference in price. And you get the version upgrade for free. So that's a pretty good deal. So a pro user that wanted to go to Studio would pay the difference between $495 and $995, that is $500, and would get the version upgrade at no charge. So that's pretty neat. That's pretty neat. And that's a great time to make a version upgrade. A great time to make an edition upgrade is when you're halfway there because you want to do a version upgrade. And the deal with version upgrades is if you buy version 3, you get all the version 3 incremental updates at no charge for as long as version 3 holds. And if version 4 is introduced within a year of your purchase of version 3, you get version 4 for free. That's a pretty good deal. Version 4 for free if it happens to come out in the next 12 months. So, put that in your pipe and smoke it. Well, better not. You might get arrested. Anyway, for what it's worth. Sorry about that. I'm Tom Sinclair, that VidBlaster guy. It's been a treat to be with you today. If you're watching us live, hang around for the intermission. There's going to be cupcakes and coffee. And we'll see you on the next show. Let's see if I can take us out of here without breaking something.